welcome to Matburn. I forgot to say the welcome to Matburn. We obviously have the show to talk mostly about wrestling in Alabama, but today we have the artist formerly known as Eric Shankles, who now goes by Shanks, and he was a wrestler from Muscle Shoals. Is that correct?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, and Scottsboro. Yeah, both of
Yeah.
them.
You went to Scottsboro also. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. Until my going into winter year. Yeah,
Yeah, we
Okay.
were
And
actually high school
we've known each
teammates.
other.
So,
I think we've known each other for probably like our entire life. I would say.
yeah, pretty much.
oh, well, I should just like go away and let you two run the show.
No, it's good. But yeah, me and Eric, I mean, I remember you. You were what, 2 years, 3 years younger than me?
I
But
think yeah, two, maybe one. I don't know.
I don't even remember. It all blends together. But I
Yeah, dude.
remember uh, when you were still like 90 pounds, wrestling 103. We're having like sink
Yeah.
weights in your pocket to like be heavy enough to make weigh-ins. I remember him eating Taco Bell every day before a
I've said
tournament.
that before. I've said that on another podcast. Yeah, every single time talk about. They hated me for that too.
Oh,
They
that
actually,
was.
everybody in the locker room hated me at one point.
We were like, dude, just don't bring it in here. We're all starving over here.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
You and the
I feel bad.
heavyweight.
Yeah, no, I feel bad looking back, but me and Franco would eat whatever we want because we were so much lighter than our weight classes.
Yep,
So were you
yep.
you were
Just living
never
your
in the
best
same
life.
weight class then, right?
No, not that I can remember. You were always a little bit above me in youth. I'm not sure how much, but
Yeah, I was thin. I guess somewhat smaller my like seventh, eighth grade year, but
yeah,
you were probably like 70s at that point.
yeah. I didn't hit above 100 until like ninth grade year, so I was super small. I was 80 pounds my eighth grade year, and then 100 pounds my ninth grade year, and I didn't go up until my senior year. So, so yeah, I was always a few weight classes below everybody.
So when did you move to Muscle Shoals?
I moved Muscle Shoals in between my sophomore and junior season. My dad got a job promotion over there, so it just, I mean, money he couldn't really turn that down, and so we just relocated. And
And of,
then actually they relocated back, so we're back in Scottsboro now. Actually,
and of course, there's the Alabama music scene was up there.
there is, yeah. I live about 2 minutes away from Fame Recording Studios, and for those that don't know who recorded there, some notable artists are like Alicia Keys, Leonard Skinner. I think Dr. Dre actually bought it out for like $1 billion when I was in high school, which at the time I didn't make music, so it was all just kind of cool. But they like, I remember them sitting us down in high school in the auditorium and showing us the Muscle Shoals movie about like all of it. And you're there, so we actually got to watch the entire movie of like the history of Muscle Shoals. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, a lot of music from that area.
Yeah, I've been up there
Meanwhile,
once.
I'm pretty sure Scottsboro's. Sorry, I'm pretty sure Scottsboro's only history is like Scottsboro Boys. I don't know if you ever heard about that. It's
Yeah,
terrible. It's awful.
not a good history around the area. It's probably.
So
Maybe a
yeah,
little bit of unclaimed baggage, but that's about it.
Oh yeah, unclaimed baggage. That's a good one.
what's the music scene? Is it in a barn with some banjos and fiddles? In
I don't even
Scottsboro?
know if Scottsboro has any musicians. To be
No.
honest, I don't know of anybody that's ever came from Scottsboro.
You might as well drive on up to Nashville at that point.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because your mom will get mad if you put a hole in the wash tub. You can't.
Yeah, no, the music scene here at Scottsboro is like I said, it's non-existent as far as I'm concerned. I don't know anybody. I mean, I'm sure there are people. I actually know one person. I take that back. Cole Bartlett produces some music, but that's about all I know. So shout out to Cole. He's our ex-teammate. So that's kind of funny,
Yeah.
but
All right.
We
Well, we'll get back
graduated
to the
together.
music in a minute because we have to do a little wrestling first.
all right.
Although the music fascinates me far more than the wrestling at this point. So, first of all, congratulations on your new job. Why don't you tell us about that?
Thank you. So I got hired at Mae Jemison High School in Huntsville as a head baseball coach and assistant wrestling coach, which actually, in my opinion, it kind of helps me out because I don't have to focus on like the busy work part of being a coach on wrestling side. I just get to enjoy developing the kids and kind of growing with them in their journey in the sport. So that actually took a lot of weight off of me, and I get to dive into something new, which is baseball, which I always loved baseball growing up. I think me and Brandon actually played baseball against each other in Little League a lot. So I always loved baseball growing up. But obviously once you kind of get into your sport-specific world, you kind of leave all the other sports behind. So I'd say as ninth grade hit, then like that's all I was really focused on. So it's kind of cool to go back in time and like really relearn baseball. And, I've been working out with those kids there and they're really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. So it's a good time.
Excellent. When did you start wrestling?
Start wrestling?
Yeah.
Oh man, I would say probably 3 or 4 years old. I don't really remember. I think it was 3, but I didn't really compete till I was 5. So you might as well just like kind of chalk the first 2 years. But so I've been wrestling for a very long time.
Are you and Brandon the same age?
We are 1 year. I think he's 1 year older than me. I'm not sure. Are you 24? I'm 23.
Yeah, I'm about to be 25 in November. So.
Okay. So, because the story that Brandon's mom tells is that he wouldn't stop running onto the mats at 4 years old. I was wondering if you were right behind him.
I was, yeah. I was pretty much right behind him, I would say.
Yeah, I think kind of, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to tell your story or anything, but similar situation. Your brother was wrestling as well.
Yep.
Which kind of same situation. If you're always around, it's hard to stay away.
Exactly. So it's kind of funny. Me and Brandon actually are very similar in the fact that we have like an older brother who wrestled before us that kind of got us involved, and we have a younger brother who had some success as well in wrestling. So it's just kind of funny. And like I said, we're only a year or two apart. So it's, we're all right there and growing up together. Like I said, our families were pretty close. I remember going and training with Brandon and staying at his house and all the other stuff. So it's kind of cool how our paths are very similar in that aspect.
Very cool. So you were probably a star in middle school. Or you don't have middle school wrestling up there, do you?
No, I was actually not very good at wrestling, I would say. I think I won one youth state title when I was like in 4th grade or something. I was always a top 4 wrestler, but I was never like a world beater, I would say. I would say I had average placings until my 9th grade year, and then I kind of like something like it kind of kicked in and kind of started to get it. But until that point,
kicked in and.
Yeah, I gained the 20 pounds and I started actually being able to wrestle kids. But yeah, until then I was a 500 wrestler. I was nothing too special.
So the Taco Bell worked, is what you're saying.
I don't know if I'll say it was Taco Bell, but yeah, something worked. I don't know. Kramer. I used to work out at this place called Kramer's Gym in Scottsboro, and I did a lot of weightlifting between my 8th and 9th grade year. And I know you can never tell, but I did. So yeah, that's kind of where
So how did it feel to go from like eating whatever you wanted before weigh-ins to having to watch your weight? That must have been very difficult.
And honestly, I was just naturally around 103, and then they actually changed the weight class to 106. So I kind of got lucky in a sense to where I never really had to cut weight until my junior year. And then we had a situation in my lineup where we had a state runner-up above me and Joe Green at Muscle Shoals. And then my little brother was at 120. So it was either knock one of them out of a spot or attempt to knock one of them out of the spot or me cut the weight. So I kind of took one on the chin and cut. And it was nothing crazy. It was only 10 pounds at the time, which for me was nothing. And I didn't really get into serious weight cutting until I would say my senior year cutting for Fargo. And that was when I was a little bit bigger, cutting down to like 106, 113.
Okay. So what are your accolades from high school?
From high school, 4-time sectional champ, 4-time state champ, 2015 Dave Schultz Award winner, NHSCA All-American my junior year. And I always tell everybody I was a 4-time blood rounder at Fargo. So every single time I made it to the blood rounds, and I lost 3 of those matches by 2 points or less. And one of those matches I got the absolute crap beat out of me. So, yeah.
great experience
Fargo
though.
was a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and it always was something. And I loved my 2 years that I went to Fargo, but man, it was always something. Like the first year I wrestled somebody who actually wrestled in college. His name was Jonathan Tropea. He wrestled at Ryder. And I'm like, we're tied, I think, or maybe I'm winning by one, and I get a concussion and split open my eye, and I have to go get like stitches in the Fargo Dome, like right here. And it was like the craziest experience ever. And then the next year I tear my meniscus and my MCL, like wrestling a match, and I have to wrestle my last day on a blown out knee pretty much. And so it was always something, but I hate that I was a 4-time blood rounder, but I still claim that as an accolade just because for me, that was one of those things. It's like, well, I never actually did it, but I was there, you know, I was competing. So.
And then you got a scholarship to Edinburgh.
No, I actually walked on. So
You
I
walked
was
on.
on a full ride Division II, and I got a few offers other places. But and I'm sure maybe you heard the story from one of the other podcasts that I did. But they dropped my Division II program, and so then I was walking on, and I was walking on late. So no, I did not get a scholarship. Now eventually I would get some money, but you know, it was just for books and stuff, nothing crazy. But I was on an academic scholarship, so luckily I was decently smart enough to get a little money
Yeah.
towards school. But Edinburgh is really cheap actually, and so I'll shout out to Edinburgh. When I was coming in my year, tuition was out of state was the same as in state, so it was a really good deal, and it was only like 10 grand a year, which is or 10 grand a semester maybe, which is for a university that's really not that bad.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's really good.
You're not smarter than Brandon, though, are you?
No, not the
No,
Cornell
I don't think
education.
anybody is.
I think I could have went
That's just
Ivy League, but I couldn't have made it. I really don't think I could.
that's just not true. I'm lucky to be there. I mean, there's so many people that were smarter than me in my grade, my class, and my school or whatever, but I just got fortunate enough to, get connected, I guess, with wrestling, and that was kind of my way in. But another way is, I mean, I'm in the ag program, which they're always looking for like ag students, and I had the farm background and everything like that, so that definitely helped me along. I had good grades in high school, but I was never, I don't know, I was never like that top tier. I was probably like maybe 15%. I mean, that's like pretty good,
That is pretty
but
good, yeah.
for Scottsboro though,
Yeah,
it's
I'd
okay.
say this, Scott. The Scottsboro kids, they have to work hard in college. Okay,
Yeah,
it doesn't come easy to us.
But then you became
yeah,
an Edinburgh Scot.
I did, yeah. I went from
So,
Scottsboro to the
and
Edinburgh.
and I'm Scott. So it's
Yeah,
like this big connection in your life right now.
yeah, it is. It's kind of coming full circle.
I used to tell Brandon that Cornell was my favorite team, but secretly I was a fan of the Scots. So
Well, I appreciate that.
yeah,
And I really became a fan of the Scots watching Mitchell Port and AJ Shop and all of them wrestling, and really
yeah,
just those singlets were really cool, and
the
it was
white ones.
yep, there. It's
Yeah.
kind of a cool place to be, and yeah, I really love Edinburgh. Yeah.
So tell us briefly about your college career.
I'd say my college career was lackluster. I mean, just being realistic. I redshirted my freshman year, and it kind of came at me really quick where I'm in a tough weight class. I mean, every weight class is tough. I'm in a tough weight class, and I didn't have the success that I think I was expected to have, really. And I think part of it was because I kind of was falling out of love with wrestling at the time. Just between the end of my senior year and going into my freshman year, I kind of honestly didn't want to wrestle. I had a lot of conversations about not even going to some place like Edinburgh. So then my first year was kind of iffy. My second year, I actually went 500, so not terrible. I didn't wrestle too many matches. Then my third year, I wasn't on the team, and then my last year, I was swapping in and out, being a starter, me and another kid. And so I had some really cool matches there. I got to wrestle at the Southern Scuffle a couple times. It was a really cool experience. So I would say it's not what I wanted it to be, but I think it kind of was good for me in a sense that I was okay with what I accomplished. And, I came to be a starter. I ended up being able to start, and that's kind of, I wasn't looking to be a national champ, especially after everything that I went through up until that point. So.
Well, starting at 3 or 4 years old, it's hard to maintain that fire for
It is.
that long.
It
And
is.
the wear and tear on your body, as Brandon knows, his body broke down in college.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of burnout, and one of the things about um, wrestling specifically is you have to know when to pull back and when to go. And a lot of the times when you're younger and you don't really know, and maybe your coaches aren't as aware of that you're burning out, then they'll push you a little more than I think they should, or maybe even that they think that they should, if that makes sense. Like they're pushing you so hard, and in your head it's just regular practice, but they're kind of pushing you more than at your age what you should be doing. And so I think a lot of burnout, especially my senior year, it really was just from I had no breaks and I was just wrestling every tournament I could. And me and Brandon both had a ton of high school matches. And when you have all those matches, that it's just a lot on your body, especially as somebody who's still growing and going through puberty and going through all the stages of your young adult life. There's a lot that comes with that. And so I think if looking back, if I'd kind of been smarter about my training in high school, maybe I would have had a better college career and not burned out as quickly as I did.
Why is it that we wrestle so much in Alabama? And we have kids every year setting the records for the most number of wins.
Um, Brandon, you want to answer this one first, and then I'll kind of give my thoughts?
I mean, kind of in my opinion, I guess in general, is like a lot of people are looking for quantity, not necessarily quality, because the quality isn't as much there as we would like it to be. So it's like if you get as many matches as possible, that's how you get better. And to some degree, that makes sense. But also to some degree, you have to go get that quality. Um, for me, getting the map time, I mean, I had 300 and something pins. Eric probably had at least if half, if not more pins. I mean, he was a pinning machine in high school. I don't know your exact
I don't even know.
stats,
It's
but I mean,
somewhere over 200, but I don't know.
when you have that many pins or matches that don't really go the full route, the more matches you have, the better off you'll be as far as like experience and just like going to compete at the national level and all that kind of thing. But I think a lot of it is, in theory, people want to win as much as they can and do all this stuff for the just want to have it, I guess. You know what I mean? People are looking for that instead of focusing on getting better. I know for me personally in high school, it was awesome. Gained a lot from it.
Mhm.
But I think, having make weight a little less would have been better for my body. Being able to practice a little more would have been better for, my technique, or being able to focus on these different things where you're not always worried about cutting weight. Because for me, for at least 2 years of my high school career, that's all I was focused on, was cutting weight, because we had a match every 2 days. It's not saying that was necessarily a bad thing, but looking back on it, if I could change it, I think I would have.
When you
Because
wrestle that
there's,
much, do you try to end those matches as quickly as possible? Because I used to
yes,
tell Manny, I watched so many kids burn out in state. Like they didn't have enough endurance to get through those tough matches because they would pin the kids in 30 seconds in most of their matches. So I would
right.
say, hey, no pinning until the third period. So he'd have to work and work and work and keep his wind up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for go ahead.
No, you got it. I was just saying, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Kind of like you need those long quality matches. I think my answer to that question would have been kind of basically the same thing Brandon said. I think that when we wrestle all those matches is because we're looking for those quality matches. And one of the things I think Alabama does wrong is wrestle so many matches. I think that, especially for our athletes, you compare it to somewhere like Pennsylvania or California, they don't have to wrestle. I wrestled 74 matches my freshman year. They don't have to wrestle 74. They can wrestle 35 or 30 and still have the same amount of quality matches that I got in that whole season, and I think like that also goes in with practicing. You spend more time practicing and you spend more time actually perfecting what you're doing instead of, just trying so many different things on so many different kids. And maybe that is why some kids from Alabama go off and they don't have as much success, because they spend so much of their time preparing for a duel on Tuesday, a duel on Thursday, a tournament on Friday and Saturday, like focus on what they're really should be doing, which is learning the art form of wrestling and growing in that.
Yeah,
I
for
I know.
sure.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just gonna say, I guess like kind of bouncing off of that is like I agree completely, and I mean I said something similar, but also like I guess a counterpoint and like something that I've thought of also is that with like the way as much as we did wrestle, I mean sometimes that was like people, coaches, whoever that may be, trying to kind of make up for lack of um, competition in the wrestling room. So when you don't have that competition in the wrestling room, especially for smaller schools that just don't really have it, having that competition is practice. You're practicing competition. That's the best way to practice. When I got to college, we did a lot of mock days, matches, or whatever. And I mean, the best way to practice is to have live wrestling. And I will say that for me in high school, I didn't really know what live wrestling was completely, because it's not the imitation of a match. It was just wrestling for however long someone told me to wrestle. And, it wasn't the same mentality, but when you like sit down and you're like, hey, here's 7 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever, let's have a match. That's a little different story when you have breaks and you're picking top bottom. And when you mock that match, it's important. And so for high school, I think a big reason that we had the quantity of matches was because maybe the quality within your room wasn't always as good, or like different things. And I mean, for me in high school, I had some good wrestlers around me, but it was still like you wrestle those people all the time. You learn from wrestling other people. And so the more matches I got, the more I would learn about myself, the more mistakes I had the opportunity to make and realize and have on video and all those things. So, I mean, for sure there was a benefit to it. Do I think it's the right way to go? Still no. I think we should have less, but I think intentions are good, but
100%.
Just without the realization of sometimes the effect or
that makes a lot of sense.
Possible.
Me and Brandon were really lucky actually to have some of the tournaments that we did have. I mean, we would travel to out-of-state tournaments that were like super tough. I mean, we would travel to all of the toughest Alabama tournaments that we could, and we would travel out of state to Georgia and Tennessee and get even better tournaments there. And, in that aspect, that was helping us, see those different kind of feels from out of state kids and get those different looks. And, especially like Brandon said, the quality in the room, even though it may not have been there. And, I went to 2 high schools, so I saw a lot more of that, like a bigger sample size, I'd say, of like, you have a lot of variation in skill level. In your high school room compared to like a college room, for instance. So I definitely get like what you're saying about getting as many quality matches as you can, for sure. And like I said, that was a luxury for us in high school. And I can definitely understand someone like in Calhoun County that in a small school that can't necessarily get to all those matches that they would otherwise be able to if they went to a different school. So I understand that for sure. But I'd still like to see us pull back a little bit and get playing time in.
Well, now you're in a position where you can influence.
I can,
That's great. I can't wait to see how you do.
Another thing I think too is just the length of practices. I mean, we practice sometimes for 3 hours, and I mean, just having to focus for 3 hours is just so hard. And we had a lot of funny characters on our team, so we were goofing off a lot, and that's just the reality of it. In practice, I'm sure your practices, I don't know if they were very similar to mine, but we would only practice from an hour to an hour and a half max. And we got everything we needed done typically within that time frame. And I think that is a really good way to minimize burning out and maximize your training at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely more intense, but shorter. I think in college, the longest practice I ever had was, 2 hours or just slightly over, but it was like mainly technique. It was a super light day. So on a light day like that, we may go longer. It was technique, and we, played a game of soccer or something before, that kind of thing. And that's why it was longer. But a hard day, I mean, you're going in there, it's an hour and 15 minutes. Maybe an hour and a half is a really hard day. And you can get everything you need done in an hour. And I mean, I could go in and lose 5 pounds in an hour. So very different mentality. I remember in high school not being able to sweat. You definitely learn how to and eat right and do all these different things so you can sweat in college. But just to bounce back, last thing, and then we can kind of move on from the high school thing. But another thing about the matches and everything, one thing that's really bogus, in my opinion, in Alabama in general, is that the rules with like practicing with other schools and practicing with other people and coaches and all this stuff. And I know when I was in high school, when I was younger, I would go to Arturo's on the weekend. I think my junior, senior year, they like that was always a rule. Apparently, it was never enforced, and so I couldn't. They were like, "You can't go," or like, "We're not going to allow you." All this stuff. Like, and I'm like, "Really? Like that makes no sense to me." And I remember
Yeah.
kids from Tennessee asking me to come practice with me, and I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that because our state won't allow it." And they're like, "Oh, well, can you just come up here?" And I'm like, yeah, it's not really how it works. I'm not really supposed to wrestle with anyone outside of my high school. But like that doesn't really foster growth for our sport. It doesn't allow you to find the best competition. I
No.
mean, it's not saying that every day you should go practice with a different school, but that's saying maybe one day a week, if you can go wrestle with another person that is really good from a different school, it will make you better. And you'll be able to bring that back to your
Yeah.
room. He'll be able to bring that back to his room, and the state as a whole can improve.
100%. I think that like high school coaches should be allowed to do more. And being a high school coach now, and then they put a lot of strict rules. I mean, in my baseball stuff as well. I mean, there's a lot of rules that go into like you can't practice, but 2 hours a week for 10 weeks over the summer or that kind of thing for high school. When, in my opinion, you should allow those kids to grow the entire year and it gives them something to do. And like you were saying, as far as raising the level of competition, if you take some of these smaller schools that you may only have 4 or 5, 6 wrestlers and you put them into a room like Thompson or Hoover or somewhere that's accessible that has a bunch of kids, it's only going to make everybody better. And I don't really know why some of the rules are in place, but I do think the ASHA should look at certain rules and maybe take a closer look as how it negatively impacts certain high school kids. Like Brandon, I'm sure he could have jumped levels if he was still able to go to Arturo's for the last 2 years of his high school career. I mean, just naturally working with the same person that you've been working with forever, I'm sure Arturo had a progression that he wanted to see Brandon hitting. And when you kind of limit that, then like, it's only hurting the athletes. And it
Yeah.
also hurts the high school coaches that don't get to see their kids for 12 months a year. They only get to see them for
Right.
3, 4 months a year.
I'm sure you may not know, but a few years ago, I actually tried to have that rule changed, and we had it put up for a vote at the HSAA, and they shot it down badly. Yeah, I tried to model the outside participation rules towards the way that Florida has them, with Russ Cozart being able to run his own clubs and train
Yep.
his kids
Gotcha.
all year round.
I actually didn't
So
know that.
we may have to
I think
try
that,
that again. It's been a
I
while
think,
since we gave it a shot.
yeah, no,
Did they go ahead? Did they give a reason?
They
Did they?
just didn't want to. I mean, the rules that they imposed were so restrictive and not really related to wrestling. They applied to every sport in general. And the origins of these rules were not related to wrestling. They were more like AAU basketball. Kids were choosing to play on their AAU basketball leagues over their school team when they had a game on the same day, and that's what they put in this blanket rule that for everybody that you just can't participate in an outside sport during the season.
Right.
So it's things like that. I don't know where the 50% rule comes in, but that's really tough
yeah.
for kids to train over the summer. Um, yeah, to get together with you're not allowed to get together with more than half of, and it's not even just half your team; it's half your starting lineup can't
Yep.
be in the same tournament as you. They've applied this so narrowly; it's ridiculous that
And like
I
you said, it was made for other sports. It wasn't even, wrestling just unfortunately got like the back seat to all these other sports. And I don't know if people necessarily understand how negative the impact is on wrestling in the state. And by not allowing people that run a club to, or not people that coach high school to run a club and help grow their area in wrestling. And it's one of the reasons why Huntsville, the city that I'm in, they don't have a lot of clubs because everybody that's really knowledgeable in the sport of wrestling, for the most part, is a high school coach, and they're not
Right.
right.
able to run a club.
And then did a reinterpretation of the private lesson rule that you were allowed to have private lessons during the season, but it had to be one kid and one coach.
Yep.
So like you're a baseball pitcher, you can't bring a catcher. You're a wrestler, you can't have a partner. So
But
a lot of
see,
the arguments we made were liability issues. You have a grown man wrestling a young kid, you could get hurt. If it happens to be a girl, there could be other consequences. So it seemed like you should at least be able to have one other person. I
right.
don't not sure where that rule came from.
Yeah, I mean, and it definitely just doesn't apply to wrestling. I mean, you look at all these other sports, whether, it's all these different things. It's like you don't necessarily need someone or to train with someone that's better than you to learn how to hit a baseball, throw a baseball, catch. I mean, yeah, if you have private training, like that would be helpful, but you don't need another teammate to help you get better. You don't need someone that's better than you. You need someone that can instruct you and teach you or whatever. In wrestling, that's not the case. In baseball, in football, you need to practice with your teammates, with your team and the organization, and learn your plays and work together and have teamwork. And soccer or whatever, all these things, like, yeah, maybe you can get a little better playing with other people, but really having that teamwork and working with everyone else is really what's going to make you improve
Right.
and be better. In wrestling, that's not always I mean, it's not the case at all. It's not a team sport in that aspect. It's a team sport in a little bit different way where you work as an individual toward a common goal, where if you win your match, if you take care of your individual competition, then it helps your team. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a team camaraderie, but just because I'm getting better doesn't necessarily mean my team's getting better, or it doesn't mean that like they we need multiple people to like compete together. You can't just have one person. It's just like
Right.
it doesn't really make sense. And
And
then
longevity for a coach. I don't know many coaches that can wrestle one-on-one with a kid for an hour and a half. I mean, consistently, if you were trying to do private lessons, I mean, that's a lot for a coach to take on, especially if they have other obligations such as teaching or whatever. It's just a lot to ask for, especially from wrestling. I mean, you're asking a coach, and then it goes in the whole, well, what if our coach weighs 200 pounds and our athlete weighs 100 pounds? And you're telling me that he has to wrestle him just because of this rule that's not even really pertaining to wrestling. It's all kind of silly, to be honest. And I think, like I said, I just wish they'd take a real deep look into the effects that it has on the athletes.
It would be nice if they just tried to consider why the rule is in effect. And
exactly.
so, I would think if all high school coaches were allowed to open their own clubs,
Yep.
then wrestling would grow phenomenally in the state. A lot of high school coaches would open their own club. They'd make a little money in the off season. They'd get their whole team there training, and we'd just naturally get better as a state.
That's what Pennsylvania does. Pennsylvania, their high school coaches have their own clubs, and they obviously are very successful at what they do.
Because probably in like Muscle Shoals, there's probably only one or two people who could run a club there.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's little pockets, and that's another problem with Alabama wrestling is that most of the wrestling is done in these pockets that are already established. And fortunately, we are seeing growth in like South Alabama, for instance. But that's typically not an area where we see a lot of great wrestling come from perennially. And then also Northwest Alabama, that's not really a place where you have just a huge collective of wrestling minds in that area. So most of our wrestling comes from Birmingham or Huntsville or Montgomery a little bit. And even in Northeast Alabama, there's really only Scottsboro that I know of. So, it's just, there's a lot of things that the ASHA could do to really help us grow as a sport. And I think by them not changing that, they're only seeing, the kids that can have access to what we have right now, right? And if you open the floodgates, kind of, you could see, thousands of wrestlers come out and enjoy the sport instead of just a few hundred youth wrestlers or a few hundred high school wrestlers and that kind of thing.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have unlimited time tonight like I used to, like I usually do. So, knowing you, Eric, and the discussions we've had over the years, you have strong opinions, tons of opinions on wrestling that I want to share. So, hopefully, we can have you back again.
Yep.
You know, very soon, maybe next week, because as we talked earlier today, DeAndre Anderson dropped his own song this week,
He did. Yeah.
and I was actually impressed with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to hear it yet.
I actually did. I listened to it on the way home from Huntsville this afternoon because I remember you had mentioned it, and so I listened. And yeah, I've known DeAndre since high school, and I didn't know his next steps would be music, but I think it's always cool to see somebody try something new. And I think obviously it works out for some people and it doesn't work out for others. And not everybody's going to make $1 million and be famous and any of that stuff. But it is cool that somebody has a goal and they're trying something new and kind of maybe stepping out of their comfort zone. I think any musician can respect that.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you guys have so much talent. And poor Brandon, I don't know what his other talent is. He's just, smart, and he's a great wrestler, and then he's got nothing else.
Well, I mean, that's a lot. That'll take you pretty far.
Yeah. So I got 15 minutes. So I want to switch over to your music career. I want to find out how you got involved, and I want to play a little bit of your music.
Okay.
So how did you get interested in it?
I'd say, and I've said this a few times on the record, I was really just bored. In between my senior year and going to Edinburgh, it was after Fargo, and then I had literally had a few months to just do absolutely nothing. And I always have loved music and love listening to music, and I have a really respect for really the 80s, to be honest, is what I mostly listened to growing up. And then as I got older, I got introduced to a bunch of different genres of music. So I just started songwriting. That kind of developed into actually meeting up with somebody that could produce my music and traveling and producing music. And it was completely terrible. Like, if you think my music is bad now, which I'm sure there are a lot of people that probably do, then it was even worse, the stuff that I don't put out, So especially those first few songs, I think anybody that's tried to write a song has thought like, man, this is really great. And then they hear it again like a few years down the road and they're like, man, what was I thinking? So 5 years, that was 5 years ago, and you fast forward, and I think just staying dedicated with it, and I try to write. At one point, I think I wrote 400 songs, one a day, every day for, a little over a year.
Wow.
And that's what my goal was, just to write one a day. And so just to kind of fine tune what I was doing.
So are you a lyricist, or do you have some music theory now behind you?
I'd say a little bit of both. I think I'm really good at writing hooks for other people.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily, honestly, I'm at the point where it's hard to find the time to finish a second verse or a third verse. So sometimes I'll just start a song and I'll never get a chance to go back and finish it.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously I take the time, and I think the reason I don't put out a lot of music is because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to it, and I try to make everything very detailed. I think a lot of music sounds rushed nowadays, and people are just trying to make quick money or trying to, make quick fame and do all that. And I think that really takes away from what you're doing. It'd be like training for 3 months and trying to go win an NCAA title. You know what I'm saying? So you got to really take the time and learn what you're doing. And
so a lot of this is like wrestling. You just got to keep putting in the work, and you keep getting better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody – I mean, there are probably some anomalies, but I don't think there's anybody that started writing music and thought, man, I'm going to sell 1 billion records off of this song. I think they all want that, but I think it's a lot of dedication and hard work, and a lot of music that won't ever be heard, but to you it's special. We made a lot of music. I've never actually, a fun fact, I've never went to a professional studio except one time, and I haven't even released that song. So all of the music you hear was made in my apartment with me and my friend. And I've been flown out to New York, and I've talked record deals with people, and I've turned them down. And then there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, but everything you hear was from an apartment.
That's cool. I've listened to your songs, and I think they're very well produced. Do you produce them on your own now?
I don't. So my really good friend, Tyreek Brittman, he actually wrestled for Johnson, what is now Mae Jemison, which is where I'm coaching at. He actually wrestled there in high school. We met through Fargo training camp. And so that's where I kind of got started with actually producing music. And so, yeah, we've been best friends forever. We lived in Edinburgh together for a few years, and now he's in Huntsville, I'm in Scottsboro again, and he's opening up a studio in Huntsville, but he's produced, hundreds of people probably, and he makes his own music, and he's probably the most talented person I've ever worked with when it comes to music. He can pretty much do anything you want him to do. And he's self-taught himself as well. So it's really kind of cool how we're all just kind of in home doing our own little thing.
That is very cool. I want to play some of your music here. So
Oh,
I have
goodness.
6 songs on Spotify. Why don't you tell me what your favorite one is?
I'd say everybody else's favorite one is probably Trippin'. So like I said, I did a tour across the country. You know, I've opened up in front of thousands of people before for various artists and done a bunch of different things. And everybody really likes Trippin'. Everybody likes Regardless if you have that one on there. That was probably the first one that kind of really,
Oh, that one's not showing up.
that
I,
one's probably under Tyreek's page. So you'd have
the
to,
one I found fascinating was the French song, J'oublie tout.
was the, which one was it? I'm sorry.
The French song, J'oublie tout.
That's not mine.
It's not yours. It's listed under you.
Is it? I don't know. It's not mine. Not that I know of.
I was like, I didn't know you knew French.
Somebody's stealing my name.
Here, I'll play you a few seconds of that so you can see what it's like.
Maybe he's good.
Can you hear it?
Yeah. Definitely not me.
Okay, well, we'll skip that one. We'll go right to Trippin', featuring Brianna Marin.
Yeah, she's a famous songwriter in Hollywood. Actually, she does a ton of songwriting for a bunch of famous people. She only wrote the hook, fortunately for me, so I can claim that I wrote the verses. But yeah, so she's really good at what she does. She actually doesn't do a whole lot of singing. She does more songwriting stuff. But
All right, was that music loud enough, or do I need to turn it up a little?
that was good for
Okay.
me.
Yeah, it was good.
That could be us right around in a new car.
Oh, it's a good one.
We could be chilling somewhere on a rooftop.
Well, that's not you.
We could be all over the world, but we never ever really get that far. Cause you always be tripping, tripping, man, you gotta stop.
You'll always be tripping, tripping.
That must be you.
That is me.
I would rather be sipping somewhere along the beach. And that could be us, but you're playing. But I know at the end of the day that you'll always be tripping, tripping, tripping on me.
Well, that's pretty catchy. I like that one.
Yeah, that one's, yeah, like I said, everybody kind of likes that one, and it actually has a little bit of a EDM kind of break in the middle, so it was kind of cool how people really responded to that one.
All right. So, is there a story behind any of these songs? Sometimes, artists have a story that inspires the song.
Typically, I actually do. That was actually something like the instrumental that I purchased that really had no story behind it. I would just it was beach themed, so I kind of just wrote it what you'd be feeling if you were on a beach. Some of my other music obviously does have stories behind it, such as Scars. I know that was probably one that pulls up there. That one has a story behind it. A few other ones have stories behind it. That's
Scars
why
is the next one, so I'll give you a little bit of that. It says
Okay.
it's explicit, though, so hide the kids.
Talking about peanut.
Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go.
Brandon's probably because of music the whole time.
I've listened to it all
Oh,
actually.
have you? Oh,
Yeah.
funny.
I got these scars on my wrist, they start to show. Never wanna be with you, I'd rather be alone. Cause everybody thinks they know me, but they don't. Well, I got these scars on me, I got these scars on me. I got these scars on my heart, I think you know. Because you left them when you left a while ago. I thought you loved me, but I guess that I was wrong. So I keep these scars on me, I keep these scars on me. I got these scars on my heart, I think you know. Because you left them when you left a while ago. I thought you loved me, but I
That's you
guess
singing
that I
this?
was wrong. So I keep these scars
That's
on me.
very
I
impressive.
keep these scars on me. I took a shot to my heart like Novocaine. And I still feel it even though it numbs the pain.
Oh, that was very good. What'd you think, Brandon?
Pretty sweet.
Brandon,
I listened to
you-
most of his songs.
You be the Simon Cowell of Scottsboro.
I don't know music that well. I love listening to music. I enjoy a lot of music, all sorts of different genres.
All right.
And,
So Scars must have a story.
The Scars does have a story. It was definitely written about an ex-girlfriend. So
Oh,
yeah,
pain.
those
Tough
are,
one.
honestly, I think people really connect when you do write stories like that, because I think everybody's had a bad experience with an ex-girlfriend. And I think when you listen to that song, you can tell like the emotion, I think, behind it. So it kind of lets you in a little bit of my life, but then also you kind of connect with it as well. I mean, everybody's had that relationship that just didn't work out, and maybe you're still not completely, ever going to be over it. So that's kind of
We
where
know
that came.
Brandon's gotten over all the pain, and he'll never be sad again.
Never. I'm
Yeah,
getting
you never
married,
will.
and I'm
Yeah. Hey,
excited.
congrats, by the way. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
It's very
I
exciting. I
Yeah,
think
now
we're
yeah, I'm
gonna.
excited.
you can write a marriage song about.
Yeah, you write the marriage song, and I'll do the coverage of the wedding. I'll do
I
the
did used to
play-by-play.
write a lot of poems. A little different, but
I,
you
I,
know,
I respect that, dude.
Oh,
I actually also have written a couple poems, and music really is just a long poem if you think about it.
yeah, it is. It's a little different and a little. It's got to be a little. It's got to sound better. A
Yeah, you
poem
got
doesn't
well, you
always have to
gotta
sound.
fine tune it for sure, but
Yeah,
yeah.
look at
but
these
my mom
sensitive
always wrote
wrestlers.
poems. Yeah,
Oh,
my mom always
sensitive.
wrote poems. She has a bunch of stuff she used to write, and when I got bored or whatever, I would literally just take down a pen and paper and just start writing my emotions on a paper. So that was my way to
Nice.
vent when no one was around to talk to.
Yep.
But I cannot sing a lick. I
Hey, me
mean,
either,
we're
man.
singer around.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom. I'll never forget me trying to sing one time. I was up in my room, my headset. I was just doing my thing, singing in my room, and she literally came upstairs and like opened my door. My door was closed. She's like, "Please be quiet. Stop singing." I was like,
That'll probably
Ouch.
like
make you never sing again after that. I'd probably be like,
yeah.
oh, that's
I
my
mean,
career.
I've sang a couple times, and it was like in the car, and I've never had any good props since. So it just must be me.
I'll say this, with the technology like it is today, if you get connected to the right people, anybody can sound good.
Yeah. We just gotta auto-tune you. You'll be fine.
Yep. Yep. That's the trick. Everybody uses autotune. I don't care if you're Ed Sheeran or anybody else. Everybody uses it. That's a
Yeah.
little fun
In
fact.
fact, I have this software called Melodyne, it's like auto-tune. It corrects the pitch, but
Yep. Pitch correction.
it doesn't have that computer type sound to it. So
That's
it
what you're
sounds
looking for. You want to
sounds
make
very
it.
natural. Yeah.
You want to make it natural. You want to add some reverb, and most artists use a little bit of delay hidden in the background.
Yeah, and we can put layers of your
Yep.
voice and then pick the best takes of all of them and put them all
Yep.
together. You be a star in like a week, Brandon.
Brandon, we really could get you going. I'll songwrite for you. We can get you in a studio, and
I think it'd be a tough look, but I mean, I'd be willing to give anything a shot at least once. You know what I mean?
yeah, might as well.
And
I'm
we could
not too
do
far away from Nashville now, so I might start my career there. You never know.
Hey, that's a great place to start it.
Yeah.
Uh, Manny's been quietly waiting in the other room, so we could do a Milli Vanilli type thing where he goes out and sings your songs,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
What's up?
so he'll sing a song. He'll sing. You write the song. He'll sing the song with the auto tune, and Manny will just lip sync it.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'll have him be like my little persona, and then that way I just get to stay behind the scenes the whole time.
Yeah, and that way you don't have to get all the tattoos and piercings that he's got.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few tattoos. I just hide them. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I have to go to another call in 5 minutes. I really
Too busy
enjoyed
for
this.
us.
I hope we can do it again.
he's
Too
he's
busy.
flanking on us. He's
Yeah.
getting way too big.
Yep.
Shad Rizzler's dragging me into some business venture that he wants to do. So
That's always fun.
we'll see. We'll see what he's got. Yeah. So when is the season going to start for you?
Our season, I don't actually know when wrestling season starts. Like I said, I've been more focused on the baseball, getting all my scheduling and stuff done. That starts in January, but I honestly don't even know. I haven't talked to our head coach as far as when
All
we get
right,
back.
real quick. Do you think we're having wrestling this season?
That's exactly what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with no, probably not. We're probably not gonna have wrestling, and if we're lucky, we'll have baseball. But if not, we might not have any school except virtual, and we might not have any sports.
I, uh, I, it's sad. It's hard. And I actually have helped out some with a school up here in Tennessee, and I've been like doing some clinics and stuff, and like on the weekends and when I get a chance. But they don't know if they're gonna have it either. And I think, in my personal opinion, this is like just like wrestling in general. If baseball or if football doesn't have a season and basketball doesn't have a season,
Yeah.
wrestling nor baseball will have a season, in my opinion.
they
You know, there's hope, but
There's
I
definitely
think
hope.
it's just going to take one big name athlete, whether college or pros, to die, and everything will get shut down across the country.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't see there being a good way to not or to prevent somebody from getting sick on a wrestling mat when you're wrestling consistently. And no one wants to wear a mask while they're wrestling. And I feel really gutted for the seniors and stuff, obviously, like the people that won't get to have their senior season. And I hope some way they find that there is more to athletics, because I'm sure if my seasons had stopped at the end of high school, I would have been a little upset. So I feel, and especially the college seniors and stuff, it is very, very gut wrenching to think about. But we'll take it day by day, and that's all we can do.
Well, I hope it works out for you. If not, you can always go start a club.
Exactly. Yeah. The best thing I could do is just, let's start a club in the area.
It's really great to have our most talented athletes coming back and giving back to the community. So appreciate that. Let's have you on next week. We'll get DeAndre. We'll talk some more wrestling. We'll talk some more music. Maybe we'll collaborate, and you guys can pump out some more hits.
Sounds good.
sweet.
All right. I'll talk to you
That'd
later.
be cool.
All right.
Good.
Brandon.
Guys,
Thanks,
nice
Eric.
seeing you.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Yep, good to see you. Take care.
Yep, you too.